Learning My Lines, an autobiography read by Ray Brooks. Prologue. I have my hand over Doc Cotton's mouth. "Don't get your thumb up my nose, Ray." Doors thrown open. Jim, Dot's husband, shocked. "Dorothy!" He rushes towards us. I stumble away and crash through the first-floor window down into Albert Square. Dead as a dodo. Dum-dum-dum. John Steed in the Avengers killed me. Again, I fell from a height, but this time with a knife in my chest. I was killed by a giant octopus under the Aegean Sea when searching for a nuclear warhead, while working at Butlins holiday camp. My throat was cut by a pirate when our galleon ship was attacked 5 miles off the Spanish coast. Alec Guinness and Dirk Bogarde survived. The film HMS Defiant didn't. As a mad pathologist in Death of an Expert Witness, I killed Geoffrey Palmer, Brenda Blethyn, and a couple of others before not finishing off Adam Dalglish. That would have stopped P.D. James in her tracks. I've killed people in Z-Cars, Dixon of Dock Green, The Saint, Danger Man, and in Agatha Christie plays all over the country. I finished off Pirates, and with Peter Cushing as Doctor Who, I shot Daleks and Robomen. Also the occasional wife, wife's lover, mother-in-law. In fact, it seems that in the last 50 years it's been a hell of a bloodbath. The scene is Brighton, the Theatre Royal, an amateur production of The Happiest Days of Your Life, half an hour before the curtain goes up. It's Thursday. I, aged 10, enter the stage door with a bag of bullseyes and proceed to a dressing room under the stage to wish luck to the boy who will be taking over my part for the rest of the week. "What's in that bag?" he says. I tell him. "Can I have one?" he says. It must have been at that moment, between the bullseye bag and the boy who popped one into his mouth, that I realised I wanted to be an actor. The seed was sown of that most important nugget of knowledge hiding under the frippery of theatricality. Yes, for all its giggles, it's a cutthroat business. Incidentally, for those of a sensitive disposition, the bullseye boy subsequently recovered magnificently from his joking fit and now has 6 children and a season ticket at Brighton and Hove Albion. But I suppose my most famous murder, the one that chopped millions around the world, was, yes, another wife, the death of Pauline Fowler. A tragedy that occurred in snowbound Albert Square on New Year's Eve 2006. Mouths open, children cried, and grandmas dropped their sherry in disbelief. In Plaistow in 2001, a little old lady stopped and stared at me. "Weren't you in the Knack?" "Yes," I said. "I thought you were dead." The Knack was a film that starred Rita Tushingham, Michael Crawford, Donald Donnelly and me, directed by Dick Lester in 1965. It won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. Its London premiere was attended by Princess Margaret, Lord Snowdon and the Beatles. We were all over the papers in 1966, but who still remembers the film in 2001, apart from that little old lady in Plaistow? But there's always a flip side. "They're here! They're here!" I looked up to see Liam Gallagher's minder coming over to my table outside a pub. This giant of a man seemed to shrink as he came towards me. "Aren't you Mr Benn?" he squeaked. "Liam wants to meet you." Mr Benn, also in the 60s, was a job that was going to pay our rent of £4 10 shillings a week for a year and a half. Sadie, my wife, and little Emma were struggling on all fronts. But the rent was our biggest worry. My work was patchy, always waiting for the phone to ring. So Mr Benn was handy, very. In June 1949, I was entered in elocution class 211, boys 9 and under 10, at the Brighton and Hove Music Festival. At the Royal Pavilion, on a sunny afternoon, the big hall crowded with parents and a frightening table in front of the podium where the adjudicator sat. I had to recite "Bob has blown 100 eggs." I can only remember the title of the poem, but the occasion is branded in my memory. I came first. It was a surprise to me. I never come first in anything. Apparently, after my triumph, Miss Donovan had a chat with my mother and said I looked nervous and that maybe I should do some acting classes to build up my confidence. And that's where it all started. The following December, I was entered into stage technique examinations. Here the categories for marking were even more extraordinary. Timing, movement, and here it comes, staying power and repose. Staying power and repose. How can you stay when you've not got any work? How can you stay in repose when the landlord wants the rent and you're broke? Who thinks up these categories? Why do they fill kids' heads with such nonsense? Much better categories might be learning lines, keeping your back to the wall when someone with a beard wearing earrings comes towards you, or learning how to survive on Plumrose ham on toast. And the word repose in the dictionary is defined as a peaceful, quiescent state. If you've ever stumbled across an actor, quiescent is not a description that readily comes to mind. So all this quiescence led to amateur dramatics, and at the same time elocution lessons led to competing in the festival. No wonder my education went to pot. Miriam Margolyes told me, "The trouble with you, Ray, is you don't like yourself and you're ill-educated." Thanks for that. So here I am, my second day on EastEnders. Where's the confidence of this magical quiescent state? I certainly ain't got it. I'm in 3 scenes in this episode, but only shooting 1 today, just 2 lines coming out of the laundrette. A bit easier than the 8 last week, and no dancing. Rush, 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 rush as usual. Line 1, cameras in, 1 for them, then shoot. Check it, clear, and it's time to go home, 10:15. "I've got 3 hours to kill, you lucky bugger," Wendy chirps. She tells me about the row she had with the director the previous week over a line she wanted to change. A heated debate kicked off, but she still had to say the line. She was so pissed off that when John, her partner, came to pick her up, she told him she wanted to leave the show. But, "Oh fuck, I can't. Ray's here for a year." But things will change. Oh yes. Even in those early days, I had the niggling feeling that EastEnders wasn't all it was cracked up to be. It's certainly a powerhouse in some ways. For instance, if the BBC wants a new show to get good ratings, they stick it either side of EastEnders because it gets a spillover of EastEnders viewers. The Mr Benn cartoons became the second longest-running children's programme after Blue Peter. There are only 13 of them, but they were repeated and repeated on the BBC and currently on Sky from the 60s until today. By the way, I haven't made any more money from all these repeats, nor has Dave McKee, who wrote it, only Don Warren, who wrote the Music House. The only extra money Mr Benn earned me is when I did the voiceover on an R. White's lemonade commercial. Mr Benn leapt out of a fridge. I can't remember what the words were, but you can guarantee that suddenly, as if by magic, came into it somewhere. He has glued me tenuously to the past. In this mad world of fast-forward, instant gratification and celebrity, where smoking is banned, but you can drink 24 hours a day, the baked potato takes too long in the oven, the pencil is an antique, and 4 million CCTV cameras watch us breathe, the only private place is inside our heads, and childhood memories can be a comforting place to rest. They certainly were for me, that innocence, the sun that always seemed to shine, the tab cards, the marbles, the certainty of everything. The seagulls, the sea, the slot machines, when running was easy and trees were there to be climbed. Where Mr Benn could go into a costume shop, put on knight's armour, go through another door and save a dragon without being arrested for ingesting LSD. Big men wilt, massive rugby supporters go misty-eyed. Not everybody, of course, that would be silly, but enough to have peppered my life in the most joyous and surprising ways. It doesn't matter what I've done or what I'll do. That little bowler-hatted man strides through the years, leaving everything else in his wake. Bless him. It's dark. 6 o'clock in the morning, March the 14th, 2006. It's cold outside, but the car is warm. I start my journey on the South Circular. I pass Dino's shop. The light is on, and I can see him marking up the newspapers for the delivery boy. 55 years ago, Dino would have been growing up in India, and I would have been humping my paper-round bag through the dark streets, snaking off the 7 Dials in Brighton. I didn't even own a bike in those days. When I was very young, 2 or 3, my mum used to go up to kids riding tricycles and offer them a penny to let me have a go. Gunnersbury Lane, Hanger Lane, North Circular, A41, turn right, A1, left at the first roundabout, turn right into Boreham High Street, first left into Clarendon Road, first right, and here we are, Elstree Studios. I got a call from my agent in May last year. "I've had a phone call from EastEnders. They'd like to meet you. There's a couple of other people they're talking to, but they're very keen on you." It was a big moment, out of the blue. Now, let me put this in context. In the last 13 years, the only acting work I've done was 6 episodes in 2,000 Acres of Sky with Michelle Collins and Paul Kay. In the old acting parlance, it was just a spit and a cough, but I found it stressful, I was out of practice. I had doubts about my ability to learn lines, but by the skin of my teeth, I got through it. But here was EastEnders, big, 4 episodes a week, so the same problem loomed large. But it was a chance to get back into the swim. If you're not on television, you're dead and buried. Newspapers would be fascinated, surely. That bloke was in the Knack. Cathy Come Home. Stoppard of the National Theatre. Big deal. The voice of Mr Benn. Yes, here was an opportunity to make things happen. I'd be resurrected. Just one problem. Learning the lines. I park in my usual spot, get my bag out of the back, and head for the door to stage 1. Up the stairs, turn left, and here is my dressing room. E110. And on the door a brass plaque. Ray Brooks, London Borough of Walford, E20. It should have 4 screws securing it. It has 2.